Do you feel the questions that are asked of coaches, for example, are softballs a lot of times?
Yeah, yeah, but I think that's kind of inevitable in a lot of sports. But yeah, I do think that. I mean, I'm not saying that the WNBA media is perfect. Like we certainly, as I just said, I think the media has a lot of growing to do as well, because again, like a lot of this. I mean, I'm relatively young, and so I've only been in it for a few years, but also like the WNBA media hasn't had this platform in a long time, and we're all learning how to cover it together. And so yeah, I think there's definitely times when yeah, the questions could for sure be better, but I don't think that's like that much of an indictment on the state of the media as a whole.
Uh, I mean, we like I said, I cover the Fever. I'm covering now the Mystics as well. Trying to develop a huge platform on women's basketball. But I listen to these questions. I listen to these coaches. The Indiana Fever, for example, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's been wearing a back brace now since the first preseason game, and there's been literally nothing asked about it by credentialed media for 7 games now, 8 games. And then she's magically injured going into game 5 with a back problem. You listen to Stephanie White say, oh, well, it's just part of normal maintenance. Well, I mean, I have a professional athlete that co-hosts my podcast, and he played 10 years in the CFL and never saw people getting back adjustments mid-game or making ridiculous. Those were ridiculous comments. What do you think about that? Why do these media members not question harder on this type of thing?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that because that's obviously an important thing. And okay, so let me. I don't know if you like have been credentialed to a WNBA game, but essentially the way it works in a pregame and postgame press conference, like either pregame, it's usually Steph White will like let's talk about the Fever. Steph White will come in pregame. Sometimes Caitlin does, sometimes she doesn't. Then after the game, it's Steph and then two players. Usually Caitlin's there. However many media. So I was at the Sparks Fever game two
Okay.
Wednesdays ago.
Okay.
How it works is however many media who want to cover the Fever after the game, you go into the press conference area. Let's say I think at that game there's probably like 10 of us that were there to talk to the Fever players. And they like you sit there for 10 minutes, like the players come in, Steph comes in, and the questions begin. And it's not like Steph, Caitlin are like the ones who are answering who's gonna ask questions. There's a PR lady that's standing right next to them. You can see her in some of the videos. She comes in and she's the one who's picking who's asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
She's obviously going to go with like the ESPNs, the Athletics, the people that she knows first and she trusts, or not necessarily trust, but like she has an idea that these people aren't going to come in hot with these questions. And so she's seen these like the Kendra Andrews, Alexa Philippou, Chloe Peterson for the Fever. Like she sees them everywhere. She knows them. She trusts them, and she knows what kind of questions they're going to ask. Where for me, that was my first. I just moved to LA a couple months ago, and so that was my first time going to a Sparks game and my first time covering the Fever in person this year. That lady, I tried to ask questions, but that lady didn't call on me. She intentionally looked over me, and if you go back and look at the post game presser, it was like 6 minutes long. Like it was. I mean, they're all tired. Like they're from Indiana. It was probably midnight, 1 a.m. like Eastern time for them or Midwest time. The lady didn't want a long presser, and so she chose the people she wanted to ask, and then she said one more question, that's it, and the presser was like 6 minutes long. And so I think yes, that there's times where people should be asking harder questions, but I think in order to build a relationship with that person, the person who's making the decisions, you kind of have to get that person's trust, and in doing so, like the last thing that PR person wants is Steph or Caitlin getting asked a hard ass question that's going to go viral, and so she's going to try to navigate that as best as she should or she will, and that's her job. So I like don't fault her for that. But yeah, I think there's definitely more of an attempt to have hard questions asked by people than initially seems from just what you see on the actual press conference. If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I mean, I got credentialed last year for the New York Liberty online, and I was given the Zoom link, and I went into the Zoom conference, and I was on there, and I was waiting to ask a question, and then they take a Zoom question, and they took one Zoom question. So why am I
Exactly.
sitting on here? It's a
Yep.
waste of my time. I am, like I said, I've been credentialed for the I am credentialed right now for the Miami Hurricanes. I mean, they're able, they don't vet us.
Yeah.
They let us ask questions. They know who we are, but they let us ask real questions. And Mario Cristobal gets asked real hardball questions about his team, and that's college football. And then I watch a press conference, and we have a player who has a significant injury that caused her to miss the 5th game of the season, and they've been lying about it. And that is where a lot of the stuff that happens in this league, and for people on the Caitlin Clark fan club, if you want to call us that, it's it's frustrating as can be because there is a certain weirdness in how Caitlin Clark gets covered to how other players get covered. I don't know how long you've been covering the WNBA, is it 2 years?
This is my
But
third season. Yeah,
this is your third year, or the second year?
third.
Okay. So you came in on Caitlin Clark's year one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a difference in how the reactions are? Like Caitlin Clark was box office rock star, and all these older players came in and just took a shit on her publicly, but they didn't shit on Angel Reese that way. Do you have any response to that or thoughts about why that is? Because that is something that's very frustrating because it doesn't happen in the NBA outside of LeBron when back in 03 when he got drafted and Ricky Davis basically told him, I don't think he knows what he's doing, going to come in here and run our team. But then they realized that after a day, like he was that dude. And Caitlin Clark has changed the economy of the league, and they still go out of their way. It's just very odd. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree that earlier on, I think there was some in her rookie year specifically, and before that, like the Diana Taurasi comments, I think there's a little bit of resentment about her stardom and how she's just kind of like bringing all these new fans to the game. I don't necessarily agree that that has continued like by and large from the players till now. I think pretty much everyone has accepted that Caitlin is great for the game, at least the players in the game, I believe. And yeah, I mean, the vast majority of the people on the court, like she gets along with them really well. You can see it, like she's talking to them and dapping them up and stuff. And then the game starts, and Caitlin is the ultimate competitor. We've seen it. So are all these other girls. Like they're the greatest players in the world. They're competitive as hell. Like I think there's times when I think back and forth and like competitive fire is okay within the context of the game because ultimately, like, to be honest, I can't imagine that Caitlin has any ill sentiment, regardless of the comments that Tip Hayes made on social media. Just in terms of what happened on the court, I guarantee you, I'm not going to say guarantee, but I would suggest or bet that Caitlin has no ill sentiment towards Tiffany Hayes because of what was said. And the same for Tiffany. Like, I'm sure she was probably heated after that. And I would imagine that when the game happens on Thursday, like they're going to dap up, like it's going to be fine. And then they're going to compete once the game starts. And then once the game ends, they're going to be back to being normal. And so to go back to your question, I think, again, like this Caitlin brought a whole new level of status and prestige to this game. And I think everyone, players, media, coaches, fans, everyone's still trying to learn to acclimate to it. And there's growing pains, and it's going to be a process for everyone, I think.
So you brought up the Tiffany Hayes thing. So I agree on the court stuff. I got no problem with it. I coach basketball. I coach high level 17U boys basketball, and those guys compete at a very, very high level. And so I had no problem when the trash talking back and forth between the two of them after Caitlin hit that 35-footer. No problem. The social media commentary, though, quite frankly, is off the wall. And they have been historically saying that Caitlin Clark fans have been making death threats and this, that, and the other. They provide no texts, no emails, no phone calls, nothing. Caitlin Clark has a stalker who's in prison right now. That's a fact. Paige Becker's had a stalker after her. I don't know if that guy went to prison or not, but I know he was arrested, and I don't know if he got probation or what his sentence was. But listening to her basically laugh about someone talking about I know what that meant. I'm from South Florida, and I'm in a black fraternity. I grew up around black people. I know what that meant. That's not a joke. That's not a game. We've had a president have 4 assassination attempts on him in 2 years. These people are unhinged. There's unhinged humans on social media. So for her to engage that and kind of laugh at it and think it's funny, it's kind of despicable. And this is a league that's preaching no space for hate while having a player almost engage that hate.